Good morning, all. Welcome to Principles of Information Security class. Today we are going to discuss about attack. What is an attack? What are the types of attack? So, attack means it is a security breach which is launched by exploiting some vulnerability of the system security. That means when a threat happens, it is an attack. Already we had studied about what is a threat. So whenever there is a threat in a system, it is actually an attack. So actually it is a security breach. Okay, and there are two types of security. One is passive attack and another one is active attack. So in cryptography, you had already studied about the passive attacks as well as active attacks. So this passive attack is also known as snooping, sniffing or overhearing, wiretapping, eavesdropping, etc. Okay, so there are two types of attacks. One is passive attack and another one is active attack. So passive attack is otherwise known as snooping, sniffing, overhearing, wiretapping or eavesdropping. And there are two types of passive attacks mainly there are two types. One is a content viewing or listening the network and view the content. Okay, that is content viewing or listening. And another one is traffic analysis. Okay, there are main two types of passive attacks. One is a content viewing and another one is traffic analysis. So first one, content viewing or listing. So you can see in this figure, there are two users. Mainly there are three users are there. One is Lily and one is John and one is Bob. Actually, the center is Lily or receiver is center or receiver. Lily is center or receiver, or otherwise John is center or receiver. There will be another user, that is Bob. Actually what he is doing is he is listening the content which is passed through this internet. So that is the first passive attack, that is content viewing. Lily and Joan are connected through an internet and they are passing some information between them. But Bob is a third party user. He actually doing that, listening the content of the communication. So first one is content viewing or listening. And the next one is traffic analysis. Here you can see there are three users, Bob, Lily and John. What actually this Bob is doing is that he monitors the communication pattern between the Lily and John and infers some information from it. Okay, Lily and John are connected through an internet and they are passing information between them. But the Bob is actually an attacker or a hacker. What he doing is he monitors the communication pattern between these users like Lily and John and infers some information from that. That is actually traffic analysis. He analyzes the traffic and infers some information from it. That is actually traffic analysis. So second type of passive attack is traffic analysis. First one is the content viewing and the second one is traffic analysis. And the second type of attack is active attack. A number of active attacks are there. One is modification of content, masquerading or spoofing, denial of service, and there's a attack on password, then repudiation, side channel attack, replay, delay, buffer overflow, malware, etc. So these are all the active attack. So actually passive attack means they do not modify the content of information. Okay. The attacker is viewing the content or listening the content, or he monitors the network and understands the communication pattern. They do not alter the content of, they do not modify the content. That is actually passive attack. But in the case of active attack, there is a modification or alteration of a content. Some deception or disruption or usurpation is the, or the disclosure of content, some password attack. All these are happen in this passive attack. So first active attack. First active attack is modification of content. You can see MIMT, that is man in the middle attack. There is masquerading and spoofing. Some entity will pretend like another entity, that is actually masquerading. And there will be denial of service, and there will be distributed denial of service, that is DDoS. And the password attack, that is brute force attack, password crack, dictionary. They are all password attack mechanism. And reputation of origin and reputation of receipt is that is also an active attack. And another one is side channel attack, which contains timing attack and power consumption attack and cache attack. And replaying is delaying is buffer overflow is also we have some malware mechanisms are there for attacking some system. And this malware includes virus, worms, Trojan horses, bots, backdoor, logic bomb, rootkit, drive-by, ransomware, spyware, and adware. All these are malwares. So actually active attacks are divided into 10 categories. Okay. So first one, modification of content. That is, some part of communication content are modified. You have two main users, that is Lily and John. Attacker is the Bob. So he actually monitors the network and identify the content, and these contents are modified. Some parts of communication content are modified or relayed or reordered to produce an unauthorized effect. So this is known as content modification. Actually, man in the middle attack, MITM, is an example of this content modification. So here attacker monitors the network packets and modifies them and inserts them back into the network. Actually, what is attacker is doing here is that attacker monitors the network packets. You can see Lily connects to the web application through the internet, and Bob is an attacker. He monitors the network packets that is coming, that is passing through this internet. He captured that, modifies them, and inserts them back into the network. That is actually MITM, that is man in the middle attack. Okay, this is actually an active attack which is coming under modification of content. And the next one is masquerading. It's also known as spoofing or impersonation. What is actually it means that an intruder or an attacker pretends to be a legitimate user. Here, Lily and John are legitimate users. They are connected through an internet, but Bob is actually, what he doing is, he is an intruder. He pretends to be a legitimate user. That is, he pretends to be like Lily. Okay, so this is actually masquerading. So ARP spoofing, IP spoofing, and DNS spoofing, etc. are all coming under this masquerading. So masquerading means an intruder pretends to be a legitimate user. You can see very clearly, you can understand the concept of masquerading in this figure. That is, you have two legitimate users, that is Lily and John, and they are connected through the internet. Here the intruder is a bow, but he will act as a lily. It is an illegitimate user. Okay, that is masquerading. So second type of passive attack is masquerading. Next, deviation in the quality of services. That is, we have DOS and DDoS, that is denial of services or distributed denial of services. Actually, deviation quality of services means it is a situation where products or services are not delivered as expected. What we are expecting from a system is not delivered. If it's product or a services, they cannot be delivered as we expected. So that is actually deviation quality of services. Due to some internet service issues or due to some communications and other service provider issues or due to some power irregularities, there is a deviation in quality of service. Okay. So denial of service is an example of deviation of quality of services. Here, target system cannot handle legitimate service requests because of the request flooded by the attacker, or sometimes the web server is overloaded by the data. So there will be some denial of services, and there is some problem like it has a diverse targets, and it's one of the most commonly seen attack types on contemporary computer networks and systems. There will be denial of services in distributed network, and they are known as DDoS. The impact is deadly. So Smurf and ping of death examples are the examples of this DDoS, that is distributed denial of services. So you can see this is an example of denial of services. Here we have a server and you have a legitimate user 2, but here the attacker compromises a system and it installs some bot. Bot is actually something like a malware and floods the target system with message packets. He is continuously sending some unknown message packets to the server. So what he doing is he floods the target system with the message packets. As a result, the victim would not be able to service the request from the legitimate users. That means the server cannot service the request from the legitimate users, that is user 2. Okay, that is denial of service. That is the attacker, it installs the bots and floods the target system with message packets. So what is the output of this situation? The victim would not be able to service the request from the legitimate user. That is the denial of services. That means server can't service the request from the user 2. And then DDoS, you can see in the figure, there is a distributed system. So there will be a legitimate user and a server. An attacker is connected to large number of users, user 1, user 2, etc. He again installs some bots and number of users and continuously sending some message packets or floods the system with the number of message packets. You can see that. So the server can't service the request from the legitimate user. But actually it's also a denial of services, but it is in a distributed network. Okay. So this is actually a deviation in quality of services or denial of services and distributed denial of services. Next, attack on password. So there are three main password attacks there. One is a brute force attack and next one is password crack and dictionary. So what is actually brute force attack means? It's we can try every possible combination to get the password. Actually, it's a trial and error mechanism. We can use some algorithm for this trial and error method. Okay, but however, the security policy does allow only a limited number of trials. That is actually brute force attack. You can get a password by using a trial and error method, but this trial and error method the security policy ensures the number of trial and error mechanism, or it all allow only a limited number of trials. That is actually brute force attack. For brute force attack, we can use some algorithms. Okay, and the second password attack is password crack. That is, computer system typically stores the passwords which allow access to the system in a password file, which is cryptographically protected. A number of password cracking programs are available for extracting the passwords from a password file. That means for a system, we can store a number of passwords in a particular file. That is a password file. We can crack that password file by using some of the password cracking programs. That is actually an active attack. And the third one, it is by using dictionary. Select a specific accounts to attack and use a commonly used password. You can use dictionary to guess the password. Okay, so dictionary can guess, or it can use to guide guesses. So these are all the password attacks. This is also coming under active attack. Next is the repudiation. So repudiation is the denial by one of the entities involved in the communication of having participated in the communication. It may be by origin and it may be by receipt. That means by sender means the user denies of having sent some data or done some action. And in the case of receiver repudiation means the user denies of having received some data or done some action. Repudiation means it is the denial of one of the entities. ഒന്നുകിൽ sender deny ചെയ്യുക, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ receiver. Sender അയക്കുന്നത് stop ചെയ്യുക, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ receiver അത് accept ചെയ്യുന്നത് stop ചെയ്യുക. That is the denial of one of the entities involved in a communication. That is actually repudiation. So repudiation by the sender is also there and by the receiver is there. Okay. Next is the side channel attack. It is also an active attack. So side channel attack means it is based on the information inferred by the secret observation or listening rather than exploiting any vulnerability. That means actually the attacker, what he doing is he inferred by secret observation or by listening. Secretly observe the computer screen contents or by using electromagnetic radiation or by using timings and by using keystroke sounds, etc. The attacker continuously watching or listening the computer screen to get some information, and based on the information he can modify the content. Okay, so first one is a timing attack. Actually, timing attack means the attack by studying how long it takes the system to respond to different inputs. For a particular input, the response is something, response is somewhat long. And for some inputs, the response time is very low. So based on that, the attacker can attack a particular system. That is actually timing attack. And next one is a power consumption attack. By monitoring the varying power consumptions by the hardware during the computation. And the third one is cache attack. By monitoring cache, it's actually an intermediate memory. And by monitoring the cache access made by the victim in a shared physical system as in virtualized environment. So these are all the side channel attacks. And what is actually replaying? And an intruder or an attacker captures the communication data and retransmit. So replaying means retransmission. But actually what it creates is it's an unauthorized effect is creating, or unauthorized traffic is creating. Okay, the intruder captures the data and he retransmits to the receiver. So the replay attacks are best countered using encryption, timestamps, serial numbers and packet sequences. By all these mechanisms we can give countermeasures to this replay attack. Okay, this is also an active attack. And next one, delay in receiving or delay in sending. So one of the most effective attacks against synchronization protocol is delay. A man-in-the-middle attacker selectively delays the time protocol packets. So it's exceptionally effective as it cannot be prevented by conventional security measures. We cannot use the conventional security measures to prevent this delay mechanism like authentication or encryption. Okay. Next is buffer overflow. We have a stack overflow as well as heap overflow. That is actually occurring when a program or a process attempts to write more data to a fixed length block of memory. So there are two types, stack overflow and heap overflow. This is actually an active attack. Next one is deliberate software attacks, which is otherwise known as malicious software or malicious code or malware. We already see in previous slide that we have number of malicious software or malwares like worms, viruses, Trojan horse, bot, rootkit, adware, etc. So virus means it's a malware that connects itself to another software or computer program to harm the computer system. Okay, when the computer program runs attached with the virus, it performs some actions such as deleting the file from a computer system like that. And worm is also a computer program like virus, but it does not modify the program. It replicates itself more and more to slow down the computer system. Actually, virus is what it doing is it modifies the program. But the worms, they do not modify the program. They replicate itself more and more to slow down the computer system. And the Trojan horse, it's also a malware. That means it's claiming to be a genuine application designed to damage or disrupt or steal or in general inflict some harmful action. They also make harmful to the system and they damage or disrupt or steal. But this malware claims to be a genuine application. Okay. So these are the main three malwares: virus, worms and Trojan horse. So there is a comparison between the virus, worms and Trojan horse. For virus and Trojan horse, you can see in the figure there will be a need of human action. But in the case of worms, there is no need of human action. It can self-propagate or self-replicate. And virus, it can replicate, but it's somewhat slow. But in the case of worms, it replicates too much, uses up resources and slow down the system. But in the case of Trojan horse, they do not replicate or reproduce. Virus and Trojan horse can cause harm to the system, but the worms cannot cause harm because it does not modify the content of a program. Okay. Virus and Trojan horse tampers the information, but worms does not tamper. Virus cannot be controlled remotely, and the worms can be controlled remotely. Also, Trojan horse can be controlled remotely. Virus, it modifies the content, but worms, it replicates itself too much, and also it eats resources, so he can slow down the system. The Trojan horse also can steal the content. And other malwares are the bots, backdoor, logic bomb, rootkit, drive-by, etc. The other malwares. All these are malware or malicious code. They are malicious program designed to infiltrate a computer and automatically respond to and carry out instructions received from the central command. A network of such system form a botnet. Backdoor it's also a malware that opens up a backdoor or hidden bypass of a system authentication for a malicious program or users. Logic bomb, it's also a malicious code placed in software and triggered by attacker. Rootkit, it's also another malware. Drive-by, it's also another malware. You just know the names of this malware. You can't study the detail in this module. So other malwares includes ransomware, spyware, adware, etc. So these are all the attacks made in a system, that is passive attacks as well as active attack. Okay, so what is an attack? What are the types of attacks? There are two types, passive and active attack, and the classification of this passive and active attack. Thank you.